The tech for this podcast was produced by Truth Digital. Truth Digital is the sister company to Cochrane & Co. We work in the same office, we drink the same coffee. We do websites, marketing, paid ads, social media, SEO, and all of the other things that will get you new business quickly and efficiently without the bullshit. Check us out, truthdigital.co.uk, or check us out on socials. All handles are Truth Digital. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you here again very soon. And welcome to this episode of the UK Flying Podcast. I am joined with my colleague Martin, and we're going to do a 10-minute flash podcast. And I'm going to start the timer on 7 tips and tricks of how to sell your flooring business. I recently sold my flooring business and have sold another one previously. But Martin has developed some tips and tricks of clients he's helped getting businesses ready. So are you ready, Martin, for this stopwatch?
Are you starting it now?
All right, we're going to go for it. Right, let's go. Item 1. Let's go for
Okay. Tip number 1, get prepared. I think one of the biggest things that I see from businesses is kind of like, right, want to sell it in 6 months. Reality is probably going to get less than it's worth because you're underprepared. Have you got your house in order? Is it ready to kind of maximize the value of it? Tip number 1.
like it. How do we? Are you going to tell us that how we're going to get prepared?
Yeah, I'll go through the how. I guess the point realistically is, look, if you're not thinking of selling the business for 2 or 3 years, for example, a lot of people start thinking about it in, let's say it's 3 years, they'll start thinking about it in 2.5. It's probably too late. You're probably going to damage the value you get out of your business if you leave it that late. So if you are thinking of selling in the next kind of 2 to 3 years, then like now is the time to start getting the prep done and get the work done. Yeah, basically.
Don't just think 5 months so I might be on a beach in Menorca somewhere.
Exactly that. And I suppose point number 2 is there's 2 different points that drive it, right? I've said clearly the profitability of your business is a major factor. The more profitable your business is, the more it's going to be worth. However, the bit that people miss is there's kind of multipliers of that profit. So those multipliers could sit anywhere from like 1.5 times what that annualized profit is, up to 5 or 6 if it's really well run and depending on the size and scale of the business. So a lot of smaller businesses are more to that kind of like 1.5 to 3-ish multiplier. And then the larger businesses might get into that kind of 4 and 5 point. But put it in simple terms, kind of what is, let's say the profit is 100 grand. If we're multiplying that by 4, it's clearly a lot bigger difference than just getting that 100 grand to be 120, and then we only multiply it by 1.5. Does that make sense? So simple maths, really, that multiplier is one of the biggest bits. So if you've got 2 businesses making the same profit, but one's tidy, done the right things, done the prep work, got the business into the right place, it's going to be worth significantly more. And depending on what the profit is in your business, you could be talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of growing to larger businesses of difference. So that's number 2. How am I doing on the clock?
Yeah, well, 3 minutes, but I've got a point to add on that, which is quite interesting, which a bit of a controversial conversation is people that want to sell a business that are taking cash, and we all know about taking cash. And I think if you're wanting to sell your business and then trying to tell the new owner that, oh, well, I take 20 grand, I take 50 grand, I put some under the bed, I think it probably devalues the business in one way. Yes, in the real world, people are taking cash and, let's say, fiddling our friends at the HM Revenue and Customs. But
Never.
if you are, I've heard of it. But if you are serious about selling your business, it would probably be time to wrap that in completely and make sure everything goes through and you pay your taxes accordingly, which I would always advise you to do anyway, but we live in the real world. But again, it's you could be undervaluing your business, where I've seen people that run a okay business, but then they've got this little fund that goes under their bed. But if you're trying to sell it, how are you going to justify that to a solicitor, or how are you going to do that to the new owner that that's actually the truth?
It's two bits to that. I mean, one I've seen similar when, you know, like people go for a mortgage and stuff like that, and it's like, no, I really earn this. All right, if it's not written down, if there's not evidence, actually brings me on to the third point really, which is what's called add backs. So, the other side of that coin is people that spend unnecessary money, I suppose, in the business, right? And this is the other thing about the prep of the kind of 2 years. You can put in to that profit figure what you call add backs, which are kind of looking to sell the business. You go, right, these were one-off costs. So we spent a load of money on this big event or party or whatever. You know, legal fees. Okay, if you can argue that they're a one-off. Salaries above market rates, right? So let's say someone's paying themselves 50% more than the going rate. If you can evidence and argue that, you can add that figure potentially back into your profits, right? Because you can go, right, the going rate for this role was 50 grand. I paid myself 75 grand. You wouldn't need to do that if you replace. If that's genuine and you could evidence it, you put that 25 grand back into the profit because you can demonstrate that it wasn't needed. If, however, you've been paying that money for like 5, 10 change that number. And same with things like one-off costs. You can go, oh, it was a one-off cost to do that party, but we've done it for the last 10 years. All right, well, not really a one-off then, is it? So it's kind of if you can evidence it easily, then you can add it back in. If it's something where you're stretching the truth, you actually probably endanger the risk of being able to get that sale through because does it sound legit, quite frankly? So that's the other barrier. What was that? Point 3.
Point 3, yeah. Minutes. 4 minutes left.
Point 4 then. So, other things, some of the key things that I've seen impact the value of flooring businesses in particular. So one of the biggest ones, and we talk about it a lot, and it aligns very well to conversations we have with people all the time about kind of work-life balance and trying to get balance in your business. If you are your business, then that multiplier is going to be pretty low, right? Because if you're taking you out of the business and trying to sell it, it's not a very complicated concept, that is it? How is it going to run if you hold all the relationships, you do all the work, you work 24/7? How the hell is that business going to operate if it relies solely on you and you are going to be out of that business? And there are ways and means around that of kind of doing what's called an earn out or similar, where you kind of stay in the business for a certain length of time and phase yourself out. But again, that's in the prep work. So trying to get your business to run so you can have 2 weeks holiday, trying to put people in place that are developed to run your business, trying to have systems in place is another common theme. So if it's all in your head and none of it's written down, so I think we're on to the next point now. On numbers this 5.
5, yeah. Yeah, 5.
If it's all in your head, if there's nothing written down on paper, how is someone else carrying on that business? So you need other people in the business can run it instead of you. And you need systems, computer systems, ways of working, processes, documents that you can hand over to someone else, right? It's like the user manual. So here you go. Here's a system that does this. Here's a manual of how you do that. This is really straightforward. That is making your business, well, an actual business rather than just you. So it's allowing you to hand it over to someone else. The other one that impacts that multiplier quite a lot is if you've got too few customers, or if one customer makes up 50, 60% of your business, you hold the relationship with that customer, or let's say something's gone wrong. I've a couple of clients where I've seen them lose 200-300 grand accounts. Nothing, obviously commercial contract clients, nothing that was in their control. Health and safety issue from a third party, an issue to do with flooring, the product that was nothing to do with that business, but ultimately the relationship soured and they lost that account. If you suddenly lose a large account that's making a large chunky profit, again, risky, isn't it? If you were buying it, and you go back through those 3 points, right? The owner's too heavily involved. They're not going to be oh shit, how's that going to work? I don't know how to carry this on without the owner being present because the system's on in place and it's all in their head. Well, how's that going to work? Too few customers or too risky customer base. That's point number 6, by the way. Then again,
Right.
high risk, isn't it? We're in a gamble situation. So all of those things on, and back to the point at the start, they're not like a 3-month fix, are they? You're not going to bring
No.
someone in and teach them everything you've learned over 20 years in flooring. You're not going to get every system process set up in 2 or 3 months. And if you've had a certain setup of customers, going out and acquiring a new big customer or multiple customers to change that mix isn't going to happen in 3 months in most businesses. So actually, those are kind of 3 of, there are more, there's about 7 things, but they're probably the 3 biggest things that you see in flooring businesses specifically that people get wrong and therefore ultimately kind of devalue the business. So yeah, biggest tip is kind of work on those areas, do it long enough in advance, and make sure your accounts are in order. Trying to sell something if your accounts are all over the place is,
Stop taking cash.
and stop taking cash. You've added an extra one there, haven't you? But yeah, ultimately, make sure it's legit, make sure it's documented, make sure it can evidence it. If there is question marks over anything, you might have a really interested buyer, suddenly it falls through the floor. And like anything, you're selling a house, lots of variables, area, all sorts of different things that can come into the mix, but it's ultimately worth what someone's willing to pay for it, isn't it? So supply and demand. And similarly, if you've got a time pressure of selling it, you could clearly be under pressure to take less money than if you're doing it in a controlled, organized way. And they're probably the main themes that I've seen with different businesses I've worked with or different businesses over the years. And they're kind of the areas that you can make the biggest impact in. And as I say, a lot of them ultimately, yes, go out and make profit.
Yeah.
But more you influence those other areas, you might be looking at 3 or 4 times that profit. And, I'm sure in lots of cases, we work with a number of businesses where they might have grown sales performance by 10, 20, even 30%. I haven't worked with any that have grown business by 400%.
No.
So kind of getting that multiplier in is a bigger factor than the profit alone, as daft as that might sound.
We're out of time, but I've got 2 extra bonus tips people might want to know. So hands on the table, cards on the table. So the businesses I've been involved with have been under 500 grand a year, with the sort of 50, 60 grand net. So not big businesses, but reasonable lifestyle business, as in having a nice income. All the legals cost about 2.5 grand for one side. So that's a good thing. You got to say how much is the legals? Well, again, if you get a consultant involved, they'll take a percentage of it. And I think the key thing is finding, a couple of people that can help you and advise you on that. And that's one thing that Cockrell and Co does, either on a fixed fee or whatever we think is relevant. But again, it's people like, well, how much would it cost? And it's like, well, if you base it probably around, for that size business, if it's 500 grand business, if you said for 5 grand with your legals, I don't think you're going to be a million miles off. But then what that might mean is you might be able to push the value up and up and up rather than getting 20 quid for it. You might get enough to do, start again, do something else. But that's always a subject. How much, well, how much is it? But that's what that's the legals cost me each time I've done it. And make sure you've got really tight for both parties, non-compete agreements.
Yeah, as you say, the cost of not doing that bit right, both in terms of what you get for the business and what could go wrong in terms of the paperwork, it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely, all the ones I'm still under non-compete, so I can't sell residential flooring within a 40-mile radius of Darlington. I'm very happy with that agreement, but it protects the purchaser, it protects us. They can't also slander us and say that we're a bunch of idiots. They can think that, but they can't say it. So there's certain things that protects both parties. So, and we've got all those legal docs that we can give people. So we're 4 minutes past our set time together, but hopefully that was valuable. A quick snippet for someone sat there in their van or in the shop wanting to sell a business in the future. We'd love to hear from you, share some thoughts, and thank you for listening to this quick and snappy podcast in our 30-day sprint of podcasts. Thank you for sharing that, Martyn.
No worries.
The sponsor for this show is us, is Cockrell & Co. What do Cockrell & Co do? Well, we help flooring shops, retailers, contractors, wholesalers, and anyone connected to the flooring industry spend more time doing productive things, putting systems and processes in place, making more bottom line profit, and running their business much more efficiently than they ever thought was possible. We run training courses, we have a community of nearly 100 people, and this podcast too. So if you want to know more about what we do, the best place to find us is either on social, Cockrell & Co, or the website, which is cockrellandco.co.uk. We'd love to speak to you about how your business is going, what your plans are, and how you would love to grow and mature that over time. There is no cost to have a conversation with us on Zoom or on the telephone. We now have a fantastic senior leadership team who can help you with 99.9% problems, and if we can't help you, we will find someone that can. So no matter what flooring business you've got, what help you would need, you just need to ask. That is all. So without the corporate waffle, without the bloke in the shiny suit, but someone that wants to make more money and spend time doing things that you love, we would love to hear from you. Again, visit cockrellandco.co.uk and send us a message, or find us on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram.